Tonight, hundreds gather for a vigil in Richmond Hill to remember the young lives lost in the Iran plane crash.
We lost a student, and that's heartbreaking. However, our community is a strong community.
The event, organized by the public and Catholic school boards in York Region, 6 of their students died in the crash. Plus, Ontario's Catholic teachers announce a one-day strike as another walkout by public high school teachers looms, and elementary teachers get set to make their next move. And a day after that emergency alert about Pickering's nuclear plant is mistakenly sent out, people are asking, are we prepared for the real thing? Good evening, I'm Mike Wise. As many families affected by last week's Iran plane crash still deal with loss, tonight another group with close connections to those who died came together. Both the public and Catholic school boards in York Region held a joint memorial to remember the students they lost. Ramna Shahzad has more.
Songs about loss, healing, and standing united. It was a show of solidarity unlike anything many here had seen before. Hundreds stood in the frigid weather to remember those killed in the downing of the plane. Like 9-year-old Rira Ismailian, a budding pianist killed in the crash alongside her mother, and 6-year-old Asal Ovaisi, her name translating to honey in Farsi, family and friends saying she was just as sweet. 10-year-old Rostin Mogadam is being remembered by his father as a wonderful treasure. Yasna Afshar held on tightly to this picture of her friend.
Still, I can't believe it. She's not here.
20-year-old Kiana Gassemi was on her way back to Canada to start college. Afshar says she never wants to forget her smile.
She surprised me and told me she's coming here too, and that moment I was so happy because when I first came here, I wasn't alone. She was with me.
Staff member Shelley Stewart says those at Jean Vanier Catholic High School are mourning the loss of one of their own. 17-year-old Dorsa Gonchi, a talented graphic artist who loved music. Stewart says moving forward will be hard, but the York Region community is resilient.
We are here for you. We can't imagine, but we know that what you're going through is unspeakable, unheard of. There are no words for it, but we are here for you, and we stand with you.
MP Majid Jawari says the rest of the community must stand shoulder to shoulder with those directly affected.
At times like this, just stay by them, help them, support them, give them emotional support, give them love.
Longtime Richmond Hill resident Carol Davidson says the healing process has just begun.
I think that there's no such thing as getting over this tragedy, but I hope they'll lean on their neighbors. This is a hurt that's never going to go away.
Ramna Shahzad, CBC News, Richmond Hill.
So for many, the focus tonight remains on grieving, but there's also an effort to financially help the families left behind. Ali Chasson with the well-known Toronto restaurant chain owner who is stepping up.
5 days on, and the aftermath of the Ukrainian Airlines crash on a global level is a pursuit of justice intertwined with politics. On the local level, it's more about what we can do to help the families of 57 Canadian victims.
It's very sad that we got caught between other countries' issue, and we pay that price.
So, Mohammed Faki, philanthropist and founder of Paramount Fine Foods, has kick-started the Canada Strong Fund.
A national campaign to raise, hopefully, $1.5 million for the family of the victims and all Canadian victims from all across the country, not only Toronto, not only Ontario. I know that this community, the Iranian community, and a lot of communities are sometimes very proud to accept, especially financial help. But you're not accepting any help from strangers. We are one family, one big family, a Canadian family.
Like the Toronto Strong Fund, which was launched to support the families of the Yonge Street van attack victims, 100% of the proceeds raised through the Canada Strong Fund will go to those affected by this tragedy, people who are now thinking about funeral arrangements and settling estates.
As we've seen again in previous tragedies, people, families are put to expenses they just couldn't have anticipated.
And so it is being asked that in the same spirit of the compassion shown at the many vigils held for the plane crash victims, that people or corporate donors look into their pockets as well as their hearts.
This is the Canadian thing to do.
Ali Chiasson, CBC News, Toronto.
Well, turning to some of the other day's news now. If your children go to a Catholic school, well, you'll want to start arranging childcare for next week. The Teachers Union announcing a one-day province-wide walkout for next Tuesday, January 21st. It will affect 45,000 Catholic teachers, both elementary and secondary. The union's president saying talks broke down last week, and she's blaming the government.
Their approach throughout the process has been marked by disorganization and disrespect. At this point, their negotiating team has no authority to bargain an agreement, and this leaves teachers with nowhere else to go but the picket line.
Catholic teachers are the latest union to announce job action. Secondary school teachers will hold their latest one-day walkout this Wednesday, affecting schools in Durham Region and Hamilton. Meantime, public elementary teachers say they'll announce strike details later this week as well. The education minister warns these measures are hurting students.
Further escalation is not going to help get a deal. It's going to frustrate the process, and I don't think that'd be particularly constructive.
There are no talks scheduled at the moment. Well, to Brampton now, where police are investigating after a body was found tonight.
The investigation right now, like I said, has been turned over to our Homicide and Missing Persons Bureau. So what will take place now and what's been taking place is, we'll be canvassing the area, speaking to area residents.
Police say the body was found in a wooded area near Nexus Avenue and Fogle Road. They were called to that scene just before 6 o'clock tonight. We have no information on the person's age or gender. Police say there's no threat to public safety, though, at this time. Roads in the area have been cordoned off for the investigation. And still in Brampton, one person is dead after a house fire there this afternoon. Firefighters found the woman's body when they entered the home near Fireside Drive in Navy Crescent just after 3 this afternoon. The cause of the fire is under investigation. Meanwhile, a fire that is believed to have started in the bedroom of an Oakville home last night has left 2 people dead.
When the crews entered the second floor, they had heavy heat, heavy smoke. When they went in, visibility was 0. So they had a difficult time working the way around on the second floor. But as soon as they entered in that one bedroom, they located both victims.
Fire crews were called to the home in the Spears and Kerr Street area around 8:30 last night. A man and a woman were both found unconscious when firefighters removed them from the home. The man died a short time later. The woman died in hospital earlier today. The Ontario Fire Marshal's office is now investigating. Meanwhile, a woman is dead after an overnight fire at a Scarborough high-rise. Firefighters showed up at this building in the Birchmount and Shepherd area around 3 this morning. The fire in the 18th floor unit was quickly put out, but crews found a woman without vital signs inside. She died in hospital several hours later. Since it's not clear how the fire began, police are treating the woman's death as suspicious. The Ontario Fire Marshal is also looking into this fire. Colette Kennedy's here with the first look at the forecast. And Colette, after the sheer amount of weather we had this weekend, it's nice to see things sort of calming down.
Yeah, Mike, we need a couple of days where nothing's too intense, at least when it comes to the weather. And I think we can deliver that where you can take a little bit of a breather. It won't last all week. But for the next little bit, one of the things you do have to worry about are a few areas where we'll see some reduced visibility from some of the patchy fog. So tonight, lingering into tomorrow morning, think about that for the morning commute, especially if you're in an area prone to fog, that you may want to allow a little extra time getting out the door there. Mild temperatures, meaning okay, not like Saturday, but running a little bit above seasonal and getting into a light mixed precipitation, seeing some of that this evening, but that chance again tomorrow into the afternoon hours, but it's towards next weekend. Yes, I put snow because it looks like we could see some accumulations coming our way. Tomorrow morning could be a little spot of some very, very light stuff. It should be more in the liquid form, though, closer to the lakeshore there. And then there you go into tomorrow afternoon. Again, a chance for scattered wet flurries that we'd be seeing there towards the 407, closer to the lake. Then it's just the showery activity. -2 is your temperature overnight tonight. That's typically what we would see for a daytime high at this time of year. But tomorrow our high is actually going up to 3 degrees. Now, Mike, I'm going to have a little more on what may be coming for the end of the week coming up.
Okay, thanks, Colette.
You're welcome.
Well, the province is promising to get answers as to how that false emergency alert about the Pickering nuclear plant went out yesterday. The chair of Emergency Management Ontario will report directly to the Solicitor General.
I don't want to impose a timeline that ends up being so tight that he doesn't get all the information we need. It's very important for me, for the people of Ontario, to know exactly what happened on Sunday morning. Having said that, I do not anticipate that this is going to be a long, drawn-out investigation. I want to know what happened, and equally important, I want some recommendations on insurances and changes that we can make to the system to make sure it doesn't happen again.
That emergency cell phone alert jolted people awake yesterday morning just before 7:30. It was said that it was for people within 10 kilometers of the Pickering nuclear plant. You probably received it. In fact, people across the province received it. More than an hour and a half later, another alert went out explaining that it had been an error. But what would happen if the alarm wasn't an error? Lisa Shing went out to find out.
That false alarm, a scary wake-up call for people across the province. The emergency alert about the Pickering nuclear plant was a mistake, but it got a lot of people thinking, how safe are we?
The systems are very safe, and the plants are designed to actually prevent anything, on the unlikely event of a major event. They're designed to keep everything inside the plant. So the plan actually calls for people to stay and wait.
Not only that, a government agency called the Canadian Nuclear Safety Commission has a team of inspectors in every facility, including here in Pickering, doing daily safety checks.
Part of our processes as well as the nuclear regulators to require that the licensees, the operators of these plants, review these measures on a periodic basis.
If there is an emergency, officials say to stay in your home and wait for instructions because every situation is different. For example, what you do could depend on shifts in the wind. Now, all of this is determined by the Ontario Power Generation that manages the plants in conjunction with all levels of government.
It may be safer to remain in place because there may not be a radiological release, or it may be a very small release. In the unlikely event that there's a larger accident that may lead to a larger release, the province may take a decision that it's safer for people to evacuate and to move out of an area where a radioactive plume could come through.
If you live within 3 kilometers of the plant, like here in Pickering, you will hear air sirens if there is an emergency. If you live within 10 kilometers, you'll get an automated call to your landline. The province is responsible for the push alerts you got over the weekend. Every house, resident, and business within 10 kilometers of all nuclear plants in Ontario are given potassium iodide for free. In case of radiation poisoning, the pills can prevent thyroid cancer. If you're within 50 kilometers of a nuclear plant, you can order it online for free. The biggest takeaway, if a real emergency were to have occurred, an alert would just be the first step. You would be getting other instructions and information too. Lisa Shing, CBC News, Pickering.
The only dough in here is Play-Doh, so why the smash and grab? I'm Natalie Collada with a mystery break-in at a childcare space. That story coming up.
The owners of a new shared office space are picking up the pieces today after a strange break-in last week. The would-be thieves destroyed the center's childcare center, but they didn't take anything. As Natalie Collada tells us, it has delayed the center's opening.
It seems like intentionally destructive and violent.
When Amanda Monday walked into her shared office's childcare space on Friday, she couldn't believe what she saw.
When we came around the corner, all we saw was brick falling. We thought the whole wall had come down. We were shocked. I was crying. It's horrific.
Someone had punched out the front door lock, took apart part of the ceiling tile, then started hacking away at a nearby wall.
I feel violated. Yeah, I mean, our staff are upset. We all sat on the floor this morning, and the question that keeps coming up is, are they coming back?
It's the way the positioning of this business was, that they gained entries in the hopes of gaining entry into another business in that area.
In other words, police say the child care space may not have been the intended target, but the business next door, a convenience store.
The way that the break and enter was committed was very thought out and absolutely destroyed the interior of the daycare. It's very sad, it's very unfortunate, and it's very brazen.
If it had been somebody random, the sharpness of the metal would have caused scratches. There'd be blood.
And there was no blood?
There's no blood. There's no blood, there's no fingerprints. There wasn't any sort of evidence that a human was harmed by doing this.
It's left Monday and her staff to pick up the pieces.
It's ripped out of the wall.
They're now waiting for an engineer report to see what needs to be done in order to open, though unlikely in time for what was supposed to be their grand opening next week. Natalie Collada, CBC News, Toronto.
Last night's embarrassing 8-4 loss to the Panthers got even worse for the Leafs today. Top defenseman Morgan Rielly is now sidelined with an injury. I'll tell you for how long after the break.
The weather update is brought to you by Train, the most reliable heating and cooling brand. It's hard to stop a train.
The Maple Leafs dealing with a major injury tonight. Morgan Rielly, the team's star defenseman, will be out at least 8 weeks. He fractured his foot yesterday during that ugly 8-4 road loss to the Florida Panthers. Blocking a shot in the first period, he hobbled to the dressing room, but managed to finish the game. The team says he had a CT scan today, and they'll reassess his injury in March. Colette Kennedy's back with her extended forecast. I like how you phrased it earlier, Colette. We got a bit of a breather when it comes to the weather, but only for a few days.
Yeah, that's right. It doesn't mean there won't be anything happening, but nothing in terms of really active weather that we're going to see for a few days. So we get to relax and just kind of wait till what happens this coming weekend, which we will be monitoring. But I want to show you what's happening right now with temperatures across the nation, and that kind of giving an indication as we get towards the end of the week. So daytime highs, this is for tomorrow. We're talking about those temperatures, maybe not quite as warm as 8 in Windsor, but you'll take a run at that. But it's this core of much colder air in the prairies that is going to stay entrenched there. But as we go towards Wednesday, it's trying to make its way a little bit further east. Our temperatures still stay mild on Wednesday. Thursday, they come back closer to seasonal, although still running relatively mild. But everything changes. All bets are off as we go towards Friday. Why is that significant? Because that's going to be one of the ingredients why this will be more of a snow event if we get some moisture added to this, and it looks like we will, than so much of a rain event like we had this past weekend. The outlook in the short term, though, some cloud cover, some reduced visibility because of the patchy fog tonight and tomorrow morning, and then a few areas with some scattered wet flurries or towards the lake, a little bit of light showery activity, primarily tomorrow afternoon, but there's one little spot there towards the city and off towards Pickering. You could see a little bit in the morning hours as well. After that, we get a breather into Wednesday, another one, and then Wednesday late day, fairly weak system pushes through, so some light flurries, a dusting of snow coming through Wednesday night towards Thursday morning. That's not the one I'm really focusing on at this point. Now, southwestern Ontario, -3 for your lows with some patchy fog here as well. Mild temperatures tomorrow, quite a bit of cloud cover, and yes, a chance for a stray shower coming through the area. -2, -3, and -1 for some of the lows we'll see tonight around the GTA. And those temperatures, you'll likely spike there up towards 5 degrees into the St. Catharines region, so all around Niagara. But as we go towards Wednesday, still mild. There's that cold air, though, at the end of the week. I've put in 5 to 10. Mike, at this point, there's still lots of time to tweak that, but it actually looks like it's going to be more significant than that. But just kind of keeping it on the down low for now till we know more information.
Okay, well, enjoy the next few days knowing that that is coming on its way.
You got it.
Thanks, Colette.
You're welcome.
Well, you may remember when this was floating on our waterways in 2017. Well, the world's largest rubber duck will be back in our harbor front this June. The 6-story, 13,000-kilogram duck will be here between June 19th and 21st for the Red Path Waterfront Festival. Mama Duck attracted more than 750,000 visitors during her first visit 3 years ago. If you spend any time on eBay or your local flea market, you can find collectibles for just about anything. But what about a department store? With the final 2 Zellers locations set to close later this month, we caught up with some former employees for some memories and memorabilia.
My name is Richard Hall. I worked for Zellers from 1978 right through to its close in 2013. And I'm privileged to be able to share some of my stories and a little bit of the memorabilia that I kept throughout my years today. Our very first store in the company, Walter P. Zeller, in 1931 opened Store 1 in London, Ontario. So that's the root of our company. That is the actual newspaper from, forgive me, May 8th, 1945, where Zellers has taken out an ad, all hail to the glorious day of victory for the Second World War. This is a toy that I dug out of my son's room, hoping that he had kept it. Probably one of my most favorite slogans of Zellers was because the lowest price is the law. And you know, it was a real keepsake. Toyland was huge for Zellers. It was one of our biggest marketing events of the year is when we launched Toyland for Christmas. The law of Toyland for the staff and the toy department to wear. It was always a lot of fun. Second biggest highlight of my career at Zellers. Gordie Howe was doing a book tour. I spent the next 3 days with Gordie, touring him around, taking him and his wife to all of the sports outlets for his PR tour. And the fun part of the story, we were done a little bit early, and Gordie said, well, didn't you just have a baby? And I said, yes, as a matter of fact, I did. He says, well, let's go see him. So, can you imagine, unexpectedly, we walk in and there's Gordie Howe and his wife. And so this is one of my prized possessions for my oldest son, Colton, is a picture of Gordie holding my son. In the days prior to the internet, every Thursday the stores would receive a great big box of courier mail from home office. So I've got examples of promotions, movements from store to store. I worked in 9 different locations. I was telling you about the #1 memory of Zellers, and I'd like you to introduce her to you. She's not only a great memory from the Zellers, but she's also my wife of 28 years. Former Towers employee that came over and joined us at Zellers. I was asked to take her under my wing when I was in the other store in Brampton, and so I took the instructions literally.
Fortunately for me, I ended up going through and Zellers picked me up, and it's fortunate because if I hadn't been picked up, this would never have happened. So we've been married, like Richard says, for 28 years, and it's been great. So I attribute that all to Zellers. Zellers was a family, not only a culture, but a family environment, and we all loved working there.
A wonderful collection. I remember shopping about the Zellers and the Towers in Brampton as a kid. That's our show for tonight. I'll see you tomorrow night. Good night.